All right, guys, welcome back to this episode of the Transfer Portal Podcast. I am Andrew. We are joined today by Doug, Ryan, and Adam C. We've got a really good episode for you guys today. We are talking about Week 7. Pretty hectic week. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about with the AP poll. Let's go around here. Doug, let's start with you, man. How you doing this today?
Doing well, doing well. Dogs had a fairly comfortable win against a quality Kentucky team, so I'm relaxing. It's a bye week. My heart palpitations won't exist this week, so no complaints.
Let's go over to the other Dogs fan, Brian. How are you today, man? You and I, we went to a pretty good game this weekend.
Yeah, we did. It was a good weekend of college football. We had obviously Georgia with a nice win. A little bit harder than we're used to. I mean, but not much to complain. And yeah, we saw a hell of a game in UTSA. We will get that a little bit later, but that was fun. It was a good time, and yeah, good for them.
All right, Adam, man, how you doing today?
Well, I'm glad y'all had a good weekend because I did not. We're football weekend for me. My Longhorns, we blew another double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. NFL was bad. All my teams lost. UH didn't play, so I didn't have they're my one silver lining. They didn't even play this week, so it was a rough weekend for me.
Well, man, remember, I was the one that was in the middle of that whole Texas debacle this last Saturday. I'm sure I'm going to go into a little bit later. I had the blessing to go to 2 games, and to be honest, my body hates me for it, but a little bit more on that. Let's go start off with the AP Top 25. Pretty big changes went on. We obviously saw Iowa, huge dip. UTSA, huge shout out to the Runners, our Roadrunners, the official team of the Transfer Portal Podcast, making their first ever appearance in the AP Top 25 at number 24, number 25 in the coaches poll. Let's just be honest, way long overdue. I've had them in my top 25 now for about 3 weeks now, 3 weeks. It's long overdue. Brian, let's go over to you. Let's see, what is something that you would say, team too high, team too low, just basic takeaways that you got?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you kind of touched it a little bit. Shout out to UTSA, man, for being in the program for 10 years. And they're, already in the top 25. It's incredible. It's good for them. They deserve it. They play really good football. We saw it, in person. That they beat the hell out of Rice 45-0. So they definitely deserve that ranking. Shout out Cincinnati. I'm really glad they're getting some recognition. I was a little bit scared that when Iowa lost, they were going to blow Oklahoma to second, and keep Cincinnati at third. I've seen the AP do that before, where they kind of, I think they've done it with like Coastal Carolina or something like that, where they're like 8th or 9th, and then somebody else loses in front of them, and instead of moving them up, they move somebody to leapfrog them. But they didn't. They put them at number 2. Shout out to Cincinnati. I really like Cincinnati a lot, but more than probably a lot of people. I think they're very deserving of that number 2 spot. So good for them. Too low. I don't want to harp too much on Alabama because they are Alabama, and they probably will probably beat anybody in front of them besides maybe Georgia. Pretty much anybody in the top 10, if you put them head to head, they probably beat them. But just in ranking standpoint, I don't think that their win I think their loss is worse than Ohio State's loss, than Penn State's loss, than Oregon's loss. I don't really know how he can be, how they can be number 4, but yet, Ohio State, they lost to Oregon. Who's in the top 10. They lost to a top 10 team. Penn State lost to a top 10 team. So yeah, I don't really get how Alabama's 4, but they have the worst loss out of the top 10, in my opinion, besides maybe Oregon losing to Stanford, or Iowa losing to Purdue, obviously, but they're not in the top 10. But I wouldn't put Alabama at 4, but that's what I think.
I would consider a loss to Stanford much worse than A&M, because if you've seen A&M these last 2 weeks, beating Alabama and the way that they came out against Missouri. I'm going to give A&M a little bit more credit. I just think the offense that they had against Mississippi State, against Arkansas, was absolutely abysmal, but they're finally picking up the tempo now. Devon Chain and Isaiah Spiller are finally picking up the slack for A&M. Calzada is finally feeling comfortable in that offense. I think A&M is actually – I think they're actually on the biggest right track right now. So I'm going to cut them some slack. I think the loss to A&M and that hectic Kyle Field atmosphere, which I was in, and I was like, that was – I don't know how any team could honestly have won when the atmosphere was the way that it was. Doug, let's go over to you. You're too high, too low.
So let me start with the too low. This team actually didn't even receive a vote in the AP. Talking about UTEP, the Miners from El Paso, bowl eligible for the first time in a long time. It was looking pretty bleak for them the past few seasons, but this is the year they put it all together. Only one loss. Done pretty well in conference. They should get more votes than what I'm seeing here. Like, look at here. We have Florida still getting votes. We have Texas still getting votes. You have Iowa State getting votes. Like, come on now. Like, show the mid-majors some love. Shout out Liam for that. But, yeah, no. UTEP should be at least get some more votes. I'm also happy to see Purdue there. Done pretty well for themselves. Like, spoiler makers, man. Purdue, when they face the top two teams, probably the most dangerous team in the country. David Bell just was catching everything his way, being a nice playmaker. Cam Allen with the 2 clutch interceptions at the end. Spencer Petras was absolutely garbage for Iowa. We kind of expected that going in, how they didn't necessarily have that good of offense, and it reared its ugly head. In terms of one last thing. Shout out Pitt for finally being ranked, even though it should have been ranked for like the past 3-4 weeks, but they're finally ranked. And hopefully they'll beat Clemson, so we don't got to worry about them being unranked again. In terms of overrated, I feel like a lot of these teams are pretty aptly ranked, but I would have dropped Iowa a lot more for how bad they crept to bed to Purdue. Like, they weren't moving the ball as well as they should have. Because out of all the teams that lost, like, that was probably the most embarrassing / ass whooping of everybody else, outside of maybe Penn State's backup not being able to do anything against Iowa's defense, but Iowa's defense is actually good. But no, losing to Purdue that bad when they've had quarterback carousel the whole entire season, yeah, you're not the 11th best team in the country. Gonna put you down low 20s. I don't even think I ranked Iowa this week personally, because when you have that bad of a loss, I tend not to rank you. I did the same thing with Oregon when they lost to Stanford. So yeah, move Iowa further down for me personally. So.
And again, you always bring on the negativity, and you won't even deny that either.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a hater. I hate everything that's not.
You hate everything that's bad. Anything that just looks bad, you just hate on it automatically. You know what? They don't even have to be bad. They just have to half-ass it, and you're already on them.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, Oklahoma State's the biggest undefeated fraud team I've seen since that Notre Dame team in 2012. They are some but they somehow keep on winning games. It is that they have the spirit of Gus Malzahn in them for how ass they are, but they're somehow winning games. They had no business winning at least 3 or 4 of those games. They shouldn't have beaten Boise State. They shouldn't have beaten Texas, but they pulled it off. Like, I respect it, but they're going to get caught sooner or later. And when they get caught, it's going to be ugly. I could see a slide of 3 or 4 games happening for them.
Should have lost to Tulsa.
Yeah, but it's Tulsa. They lost UC Davis. I'm not giving them credit.
They'll look at Ohio State and they'll claim that they'll also should have been Ohio State too. But anyways, that's beside the point.
Oh yeah, speaking of Tulsa, before we move on, that comeback against USF this weekend was kind of, you shouldn't be down that much to USF, which is that program is completely done. But nice comeback, by the way. So shout out Tulsa for that.
All right, let's go over to you, man. I'm a little scared to talk to you right now because I just feel like you're going to rage at any second at this point. So let's just get your overall thoughts on the AP.
Sorry, yeah, my internet's messing up. I'm assuming that was directed towards me. So my thoughts for the AP, I currently agree with Doug. I think Oklahoma State is way too high. I can't see how they're the eighth best team in the country. Yeah, they're undefeated and they went ugly. Like y'all said, they shouldn't have beat Texas. They should have lost to Baylor through 3 interceptions. I think that they're going to lose to Iowa State next week. And I can also see them losing a couple more games till then. On the same note, I think that SMU is a lot better than 21. I would have them above NC State, A&M, and Baylor probably too. I think they have a really good football team, which sucks because they play my Cougars in 2 weeks. But I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, and I can see Oklahoma State losing 3 or 4 games here soon as well. I also think Baylor is also. I'm glad to see them back in the top 25 as well. They had a nice win against BYU, and I thought they looked pretty good.
So in terms of what I would say, in my opinion, let's just be honest, Oklahoma State is the most fraudulent team. Right now, I'm looking at the top 25 right now. And in terms of top 10 teams, they have the absolute worst point differential at only 7. This is honestly a huge shocker. I'm assuming that means +7 per game. Of course it does. Spencer Sanders, he's going to go pro, but he's not going to go pro in sports. That's just the truth is. Seeing him play this past Saturday when I was over in Austin, I was like, how the hell is this dude a college quarterback? How did this dude even get a scholarship offer? I don't think I've ever seen such a non-factor at quarterback for as high of a team as far as as undefeated teams go in terms for Oklahoma State. Spencer Sanders is the most bang average quarterback I think I've ever seen for a 6-0 team. It was ugly. He had the run game bail him out the whole time. He had the defense in the fourth quarter bail him out. He's not going to be a playoff guy. He's not going to be a New Year's Six guy. He's just not that guy. And I think it's just going to catch up to Oklahoma State probably a lot sooner than later. And it really is a shame that they've already played Baylor, because I think if you play that game again, Baylor's going to win that game probably 8 out of 10 times. And I say that with no issue. And now that you got Caleb Williams over at Oklahoma right now, I think Oklahoma's, if they were to play right now, even on a neutral field, I think Oklahoma wins that game by fucking hell, 24, 28 points at this point. This Oklahoma State team, I don't know how they're undefeated. They're just pulling off these games, and yet it's in the most uncomfortable fashion. I'm not even enjoying watching an undefeated team like that. So they're still my too high team. I think SMU is better than them. Does that mean I'm going to put SMU over Oklahoma State? Maybe not because they're a G5 team, but if you put SMU and Oklahoma State on a neutral field right now, I'm picking SMU, and I'm not even going to second guess that choice. Now, I do have Oklahoma State as my too high, as my too low. I'm going to go off of what Adam said. I'm going to go with SMU too. They are just among the most unbeatable offenses that I see in the G5. I think they could go to toe with almost any defense in the country. And funny enough, you did mention they play the Cougars in about 2 weeks now. I'll be at that game. I am excited. And if the Cougars win that game, I am storming the field, zero hesitation. But SMU, I really love the receiving core. I love Mordecai. I love Calcaterra, tight end. Both those guys being OU transfers. Roberson, Rasheed Rice. There's just not enough that you can say about SMU. They did look shaky against Navy, but I really do believe SMU, they give Cincinnati, out of all the teams in the AC, I think their offense would give Cincinnati's defense the biggest test. And if you were to put Houston, I really like Alton McCaskill. Clayton Toon's really been picking it up, but Sack Avenue at Houston right now is Cincinnati defense versus a Houston defense. Let's say Houston beats SMU in a couple of weeks and goes undefeated in the rest of AAC play. That I think Houston, even though they haven't really beaten anybody since their loss to Texas Tech to open up the season, I think they deserve a little bit more credit. I mean, they got the second most sacks in all of FBS. They're called Sack Avenue for a reason. The third ward defense is back for it for Houston. I think that once they can string together a win against East Carolina this weekend, and if they can beat SMU next weekend, the winner of SMU and Houston, I'm going to call it right now, they're going to spoil Cincinnati's hopes. I'm just going to go ahead and just put it out there. So we got some storylines to cover here. We're going to start off with Washington State. Big news out of Washington State. Came in probably just about an hour ago. Washington State has fired football coach Nick Rolovich for refusing a state mandate that all employees get vaccinated against COVID-19. I am going to back off for a little bit on this one here. Whoever wants to speak first, you may disrupt the peace.
He deserves to get fired. He deserves not to coach a team in that state. He does not deserve anything else. It's clear. It's a mandate. Like, you get the shot, or if you don't get the job. He was being a complete ass about it to the media. They're asking them legit questions. He wasn't trying to go in depth. There is a certain level of privacy that does exist, but not in terms of this, because it does. You are the highest paid state employee, and that requires some level of transparency. When it comes to like religious exemptions, for the most part, or personal exemptions, for the most part, this wasn't applicable to him. And he was just being completely dense about it. I feel bad for the kids, mainly because it seemed like they finally bought in to Rolovich this week. Like, they beat Stanford, and all the players were happy for him and happy to basically send him off with a win. Like, the players truly cared about him, but at the end of the day, if you really cared about the players enough, you'd get that shot and you'd be back on the field pretty soon. So in the end, he's pretty selfish, not just preventing lives from being lost, but also he doesn't care enough about the program to just get the jab. So rest in peace.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Doug said. At the end of the day, it comes people in that sort of position. You're in a position of power. You're in a position of a role model for people and for these kids, and you have to set some sort of example. And regardless of what you think, and coaches always preach selflessness. They always preach about being there for your teammates, being a team player. It's not about you. Get over yourself. These are coaches preach that, and if you see a player act this way, and the coaches will chew his ass out, and will make him do a certain thing, or will bench him, or whatever the case may be. This is no different than that. Regardless, look, and not there's obviously people have their own their beliefs and whatever the case may be, but this isn't about a belief on anything. This is facts. There's facts about this topic. There's facts about this situation that it's greater than yourself. You're not just affecting yourself. You're not affecting your personal opinion. Your personal opinion is not stronger, should not carry more weight than the greater good of everybody else. Because sure, you know what, you don't get the shot, you get fired, whatever, but who are you affecting? You're affecting the players that came to your school to get coached by you. You're affecting the families of the coaches that you brought in with you, who now have to probably scramble and find, because whenever a new coach comes in, he's probably going to bring in his own coaching staff, his own different assistants and all that. So all of the coaches that were hired, were brought into this program with the belief that this was a long-term thing. Because of his actions, they're now affected by it, and and a lot of them maybe did the right thing. Obviously, they must have, because if they didn't get fired, they did the right thing by getting the shot and getting vaccinated and getting the ability to do the right thing and continue your profession and continue being the example for these student athletes. Now they have to scramble now, and they have to figure out what's next for them, because you decided that your personal opinion and your pride and your political views or whatever the case may be is more important than your job. It's just brainwashing, man. It's ridiculous. And regardless of and honestly, I don't, if you disagree or if you have to, like, you're a grown ass man. Who cares about getting feelings hurt at this point? You're a grown ass man. And, you have to respect my opinion. I don't have to respect your opinion if your opinion affects is going to hurt more people. But I could go off about this forever, and I don't want to get too far into it, and I don't want to piss anybody off. But it's bigger. Stop being selfless. Stop being selfish. Stop. It's not about you. At the end of the day, this whole situation, this whole thing that we have, it's not about you. And that's what people need to realize, that it's bigger than you. And that's the problem, not only in the sport, in this situation, in this country, in the world. It's not about you. Get your head out of your ass, get over yourself, and do it. And that's it. Listen to the people who know more than you, and that's it. No one's going to tell you how to coach a football team. You don't tell people you don't tell scientists and doctors and experts what's right and wrong. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I could go off, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll continue on what Brian said. If this is very disappointing, because he brought in, like you said, he brought in so many players and coaches, and they're all lost right now. So I don't want to say, I think selfish might be the wrong word to use, because it is his choice. But it's selfish because he did have responsibility for, his staff and his players and stuff. But it is his body still, so he gets to decide what he wants to do with it. He definitely could have went about it a different way. I hope that he talked with his players and his coaches and kind of was less of a dick about it than he was to the media. So he kind of ended that on a better note. I'm not sure if he did. I hope he did. But it's very disappointing, especially because it's different if you're a player versus like if you're like Kyrie Irving or something. I think it's a little different than where you're the leader of a football program or any type of big organization. So it's disappointing. I don't think it'll be the last instance that we see, but that's just the time that we live in right now.
So all I really would say to it is, because I'm not going to disagree with anything that was just said, I will agree with Adam that even though it is his body and his choice, every time you make a choice, you deal with the consequences. That's kind of just the way I view it. We live in a capitalist country. People want to complain that capitalism is being destroyed, but capitalism allows the employer to fire you whenever they want to. And in this case, it kind of backfires on him. He's got to deal with it. All I know is that it seems like I think everybody here is vaccinated, and none of us are dead yet.
Amen.
And I'm not crippled. I'm not having seizures. I'm not spazzing out. I don't even think I've had a cold since I've gotten it. So, you know what? I'm going to just leave it at that. So we're going to go into the next topic here. I got to talk about it. That flag that's over Adam's left shoulder right now, we got to talk about it. It's a big issue right now. And I'm not talking about the France flag. I'm talking about the other flag. I'm talking about the team that I went to go see this past weekend. And oh my goodness. Just what the hell, Texas? Adam, I know I've seen you on Twitter. I know you've wanted to rant, so the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so after the Oklahoma game, I was optimistic. I thought that it's a young team. We blew that lead, but I didn't expect us to beat Oklahoma anyways, so I wasn't too upset about it. During the first quarter, I thought, okay, we're bouncing back. But it's the same game plan when you want to play Texas. All you have to do is run the ball. Run the ball. You force one turnover, you're gonna win the game. They play Arkansas. Arkansas ran for 300 yards. They force a turnover. they won the game. Oklahoma, same thing. I mean, Caleb Williams, they made some good plays throwing down the field, but for the most part, the game plan was just run the ball. Eventually, you can't tackle. You're gonna break one. Last week, and you saw it firsthand. It was 3rd and 9. Just run the ball. You'll get 9-10 yards every time. 2nd and 17, run the ball. You get 15 yards. You're at 3rd and 2. So we've seen this before with Sark. Saw it when he was previous head coaching positions. So these aren't his guys. So I'm not too, burn down the whole staff, but we'll give him some time. As far as the offense goes, I think that a lot of what people talk about is Sark's offensive genius. And I think you see that a lot in the first 20 or so scripted plays. They're doing things, they're doing fakes. Bijan's playing wide receiver. But when it gets to the second half, I'm not seeing any of that creativity. It's run a stretch play to Bijan, a bubble screen, and then an RPO. And if that's not there, we're going to punt the ball. We ran that almost every drive against Oklahoma State, against Oklahoma as well. And that's why we scored 10 points in the second half against Oklahoma. And we scored, another 10 points in the second half against Oklahoma State. So 7 points against Oklahoma State. So again, these aren't his guys. So he deserves time. But I hope it gets fixed soon because I'm tired of embarrassing myself by saying Texas is back.
And I'm not going to be saying that for a long time until I'm given a reason to, just to be honest. But kind of said it. I saw it. I was over there in Austin this weekend, and I don't know what the hell I saw in that second half. I thought first half they did everything right. They were able to spread out the ball more. They were able to give it to Bijan on both the run and the pass. And then when it came to third quarter in the beginning of the fourth, they just stopped doing it. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? Why are you – I mean, he did get a touch on the third quarter, but he wasn't as active in the game plan. And I was like, why? And at the end of the game, he wasn't even the best running back statistically. It was Jalen Warren of Oklahoma State. He was the one that got the 193 rushing yards. I don't know why you just stopped giving the ball to Bijan. I've seen Bijan be surrounded by 4 players, and he still gets to the goal line.
Absolutely.
Bijan is the best running back in college football this season. Why are you not utilizing him as much in the second half? And also Casey Thompson threw an absolute horrendous interception that essentially turned – it was the pick six. He threw 2 of them. He threw the pick six, and then he threw a terrible one in the second half. And, then he got hurt. Then Hudson Card came in. But truthfully, I left it in the middle of the fourth quarter because it was probably the best idea to do so. I had to ditch the Austin traffic because Austin traffic is terrible. There's only one interstate throughout the entire city. I don't know who thought of that plan.
It's the worst.
The best part of it, I just wrote an article about this. It's probably going to be published by the time that this podcast comes out, but I just got done with it about an hour ago. And I'm essentially looking at everything in terms of culture in Texas right now. When I was in Austin this past weekend, I try to get what the vibe of the town is like. I'm not just there for the football game. I want to know what the vibe is around the college town. And I came out with this highly conclusive hypothesis. I don't even know if I want to call it a conclusion yet. The problem with Austin right now is that it does not feel like a football town right now. It really doesn't. It doesn't feel like a football town. It feels like a party town that likes football more. It feels like a party town that just happens to like football. And I'm looking at the recruiting for the state of Texas. They're getting blown out of the water by the likes of Texas A&M and Ohio State. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, why are Texas recruits, why are they choosing to go to Ohio State and Texas A&M over Texas? And I'm starting to see why. Because those guys are – those locations, College Station and Columbus, they're football first college towns. When I was in Austin, like I said, it was a party town first and then a football second. And there's just something in the culture with Texas right now where it does not feel like football is the main priority when it should be. When I was in College Station this last weekend, it was nothing but football. It was a football town that like to party, and it was the vice versa of Austin. And I've been to Columbus. They're very passionate over there too. So I think right now, and maybe Sark is trying to put it together. Maybe he's trying to refix the culture. Maybe it was the fact that when Tom Herman was in Austin, maybe there was a culture that was different because we know that Herman, he liked to be loose a few times. Maybe that culture was still there. I don't know. Maybe for all I know, everything I'm saying is being completely wrong. Please tell me if I'm being wrong. But based on what I'm seeing, it's just the vibe that I got when I was over there.
Yeah, what I will say to that, you're not wrong. I was born in Austin, so I kind of I didn't live there. I've lived in Dallas most of my life, but I was born there, and my dad went to UT. Austin, it's a lot of people are moving there, so it's kind of becoming a bigger city. So it's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of people in Dallas, they like the Cowboys, but it's not really like the Cowboys are more nationwide. The Texas Longhorns are more statewide than they are localized. Unlike, someone like Texas A&M, or because only in College Station is Texas A&M. In Austin, there's concerts, there's music, there's food. There's a lot of different things that people like Austin for. So it's it's just one of the things you have to deal with. UH, we have to deal with that too. When UH football is doing well, everybody's talking about it. When they're not, the stadium's empty. I'm sure USC has to deal with that in South Carolina. I'm sure Miami has to deal with that too. If you go to Miami, it's not going to feel like a football town, but that's kind of what makes the Texas Longhorns what they are. It's so many other things in that city. And you're right, we are losing a lot of recruits to Ohio State, which is a shame because we're losing recruits from literally down the street that play at Lake Travis or Westlake, and they're not choosing to stay at home.
Cade Klubnik, he's currently the number one pocket passer in the country. And guess what? He's going to Clemson.
Exactly. I remember Garrett Wilson, when he was at Lake Travis, everybody wanted him at Texas, and we were confused why he chose Ohio State. So hopefully Sark changes that. I would like to have that, small town college feel again, because I feel like we used to have it, but like in most big cities, if you're not winning, then nobody really cares. There's other things to do other than football. So if you're not winning, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to a concert or something.
So another thing that I was going to say, because I did want to bring this up real quick, because I did mention this at the end of the article. I brought up a wide variety of recruits' names. I know Quinn Ewers, he was South Lake Carroll. That's more Dallas, but that's the same thing. He went to Ohio State. Calvin Banks, I wish we had Dylan, because he's going to Oregon. He's here in Houston. Denver Harris, he's a cornerback out of North Shore High School here in Houston. He's one to look out for because right now he's split 50-50 on Alabama and Texas. And if he does choose Texas, there'll be some switch. Okay, you got Jadon Blue, who's part of Klein Kane High School, North Houston. He 10th running back of this class. He opted out his senior year. Full credit to him. He should have. He's going to Texas. So it's not like they're missing out on everybody. We know that they're involved. I think right now with Texas, I think the biggest challenge that Sark is trying to sell. I think he's just trying to sell the culture in Texas right now. I think he's trying to sell. I think he needs to sell the UT brand. I think that's the most important thing for Sark to do. He needs to sell the brand. He needs to make sure that when you go to Austin, it's a Longhorn town first. And I think that's just what the challenge I used to deal with. Brian, Doug, y'all got anything to say about this?
Yeah. So with my thing is kind of what Adam talked about a little bit as well, is that the city of Austin, and it's mostly big cities as well where these schools are located. It's a little bit harder. You don't have that small town, college town feel. There's so much more to do, like Adam was alluding to, in the cities, Austin, Miami, LA, think Boston, those types of towns. It's not like your Fayetteville and College Station, Waco, Athens, Georgia, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You don't really, it's or Gainesville, Florida. It's not those types of schools. That city, those towns that all they have, it's literally the university and then just, everything else around it. So it is harder. I think it is harder for a school like UT, to kind of have that pull because of that situation, but to also the fact that UT is a named school in Texas, right? So that's the school that everybody wants to every person in Texas, unless you live close to A&M or Texas State, or I mean Texas Tech or Baylor, you're gonna cheer for UT. You walking down the street, you ask 10 people who their favorite college football team, and at least half or more are gonna say UT. So yeah, and it's just an identity crisis, in my opinion. I think we're trying to figure out what Texas is at the moment. They're kind of in purgatory. They're too good they're too good to be like this, but they're not good enough to compete. So they're kind of in that situation. We talk about, is Texas back? Is Texas back? Is Texas back? And then we need to pump the brakes on that. Just kind of let them figure it out. So I think Sark is in a good position. I think, yeah, they've lost some games, but like Adam said, this isn't his team. These aren't his guys. In college, you have to give a coach. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, when they lost to Arkansas. I think I talked about it then, that you have to give these coaches a couple of years. Kirby Smart, when he went 8-5 his first year at Georgia, so you got to give him time. I think Nick Saban went like 7-6 or something at Alabama his first year too. So you have to give him time. You have to give him a couple of years to kind of get his recruiting guys in and everything like that. And talk about recruiting. The SEC on that logo, the SEC logo on that field is going to attract recruits. So you can have a Quinn Ewers might not go to Ohio State. They might not go to Clemson, because they have, you're going to go to a school that's in the SEC, because in the Big 12, you lose one game, you're pretty much out. If you go to the Big 10, you can lose it. Ohio State can still lose a game and still make the college football playoff. Alabama loses the game, they're still in the college football playoff. So, with Texas moving to the SEC in a couple of years, and having that recruiting class, and you're starting to have that ability to recruit that. When you recruit players at this point in time, this coming recruiting cycle, you can start using that as a recruiting tool. Say, hey, to your second year, by the time you're a junior, we're in the SEC. So that I think they'll be okay. But when we talk about Texas is back, University of Texas is back, but it's not the University of Texas we're thinking of. The University of Texas at San Antonio is back. So go Runners, because they are the only school in the UT system that's ranked. So how about that?
Runners.
How about them Runners?
Sincere McCormick, what a legend. Literally the first play that we saw when we got into Alamo Dome, it was like end of first. Yeah, it was the end of the first, close to the end of the first. That dude runs it for 81 yards like it's no big deal, man. And honestly, man, one reason why I love college football, man, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. I got to see Rice get smacked twice in person this year, 44-7 at Rice Stadium against U of H, and I got to see him get smacked 45-0 here at UTSA. I'm a happy man. This was a glorious day. One of the best seasons of my life just because of that in general. I love it. And you know what? Huge shout out to UTSA. It's not just the fact of them getting ranked. I was shocked to see the home support that they got there in the Alamo Dome. It was loud. It was packed. It was more energetic than Darrell K. Royal Stadium was earlier that day. And I am saying that even the dog agrees with it. I don't know if he agrees or if he's pissed off, but it's one of the two. But this home support's amazing. The fact that they've really grown over the last 10 years, and the fact that they're about to submit their application to join the AAC, the American Athletic Conference. Huge props to them. Huge shout out to Jeff Traylor, the way that he's able to elevate the program. Frank Harris, who loves the lefty that wears number 0, he's doing phenomenal. Sincere McCormick, probably a top 5 running back in the country. Rashad Wisdom, hard-hitting safety. I think he's going to do things at the next level too. And this San Antonio defense, if you have not seen the San Antonio defense, just watch them. They're all over the field. They're aggressive. They had a stat on the scoreboard that they had more interception return yards than Rice had total offensive yards.
God damn.
Whoever plays UTSA, because I think UTSA, I think they're going to sweep the Conference USA, no issue. I think they're going to win the Conference USA game. Lord knows what their final ranking is going to be whenever the final playoff rankings come in. Whoever they play in a bowl game, and it's not going to be a New Year's Six bowl. It's going to be some freaking not Beefle Brady, not Little Caesars, but something a little bit higher than that. We'll see what it is. Maybe I don't know what the whole conference at large system is entirely, but whoever they play, guess what? They're going to be surprised. How does
Vegas?
a team? I'd go to Vegas. I would seriously travel to Vegas to see them play there, or I don't know how highly regarded the Frisco Bowl is necessarily, but I just do not think they're going to get enough credit by the media. It's taken this long. We're 7 games into the season. They're finally getting the rank. I just think they're being lowballed a lot right now. And there's a lot of talent on that team. So huge prop to UTSA. I'm excited for what they're going to do for the rest of the season and even for the future, man. I'm excited to see what they're going to do in the AAC if they get that bid.
I see them going through a path like TCU did, where they kind of just made it wait, because they've done this very quickly, quickly. And there's teams. Texas State has been a football team longer than UTSA has, and they're stuck in the Sun Belt. So the fact that they've been able to do it so quickly, they go from no team to ranked in 10 years, and now they're joining, a high G5 conference in the ACC, the AAC. The sky's the limit. So good for them. I'm very happy. I remember going to a game. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, if you buy a Pizza Hut meal deal from Pizza Hut, you get 2 free tickets to a UTSA football game, and you go and you sit, and there's 30 people there. And it was against Southwest Mississippi College Northwest. And it was just to see that, 4 or 5 years ago to now, where they're playing Memphis and they're playing, they're beating Rice. I think if I remember correctly, I think they played Rice like 3 or 4 years ago when they lost like 40 something to 3 or something like that. They got blown out by Rice. And to come back now and beat them 45-0 and be ranked and beat Illinois and beat Memphis and teams like that, it's very special. And a lot of credit goes to Jeff Traylor. Jeff Traylor, what he's done to this program, and he's bought into the city of San Antonio. And I've agreed with this for a long time, and he mentioned it as well, is that the amount of talent that's in this city that goes unnoticed is incredible. And you need to start paying attention to San Antonio high schools, because there's a lot of talent here that goes unnoticed. So shout out to him and shout out that coaching staff. They've done a phenomenal job. And I just hate that he's going to get poached away by some Power 5 team soon in the next year or two. So that's going to suck when that happens, but I hope that as long as he's here, it's a fun time. So I'm ready for it, and go Runners.
Fun fact, I just want to throw this out there. opens up the season next season at UTSA. I'm already planning on going to that game already. And you talking about UTSA getting knocked out, guess what? They're going to be playing a future Power 5 school right there, in home ground. So I'm saying that. Huh?
I said, go ahead. No,
I thought you said when. I thought you were about to cry or something. I don't know what you were doing, but anyways, you said when.
I said go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, then why'd you interrupt me? Why'd you interrupt me, man? I'm just kidding.
It took a compliment, dog.
So what I was saying was, I think I think they're gonna go ahead. They're gonna beat UTSA over the season next year. But one thing I did want to say, we just got done talking about Texas in terms of like Austin being, multicultural, not, a college town. I think when you're a school like UTSA, because I thought about this whenever you mentioned Texas State. I think when you're a G5 school like UTSA, I think it is good to be in a major city like San Antonio. I think Houston gets benefit for being in the fourth largest city. When you're a G5 school, I think being a big city like that does help you. Maybe it only hurts whenever you do get to that Power Five level. So, because what you said about Texas State, what's Texas State? What town is Texas State? It's in San Marcos. There's nothing to do in San Marcos except go to that little strip mall. The strip mall's there. There's literally nothing to do in San Marcos besides that. So yeah, of course I'd go to UTSA for football.
So, quick question: like, what's the closest thing, like area of San Marcos? Like closest, like big
San
city?
Antonio.
It's like
how far out is that?
Smack dead between Austin and San Antonio.
It's 30 minutes to Austin, 30 minutes to San Antonio.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
You pass San Marcos when you go to Austin from San Antonio.
Vice versa too. There's really, honestly, whenever you go from like Austin to San Antonio, it's like nothing. But then it's like you pass up. But then when you go through San Marcos, it's literally just the outlets. And once you go past the outlets, then you're back to nothing.
The only reason I go to San Marcos is to hit up their Zaxby's because that's the nearest Zaxby's from here.
Damn.
Yeah.
They got some really, really salty food at Zaxby's.
It's good though. Better than any other chicken joint out there.
I like Chick-fil-A, man. I think Chick-fil-A is the best out there.
I do have a comment about UTSA. I think that they are on the right path. I'm still a bit salty that they beat UH, and UH's home opener of the new stadium. They came in there and they spoiled that.
Remember that.
They do kind of remind me of what Houston was, 10 years ago, back when we had Case Keenum and stuff. That if Brian is right, there's a lot of talent in that San Antonio area. One of the big high schools, Cibolo Steel. That's one of the most historic high schools in Texas. They're in San Antonio area. If they can build, do what Houston did, and just try and keep those recruits in the city, I think they can. I think they'll be here for a while, and having that moving up to the American would definitely help. But that's what Houston tried to do with Tom Herman, and it worked. If UTSA can do that too, if they have the right coach and the right program, I think they'll be just fine.
All right, let's go to an SEC rival of the Georgia fans here. We're going to go over to Knoxville, Neyland Stadium. Truthfully, I didn't really pay much attention to this game because I just got out of the UTSA game when this game was happening. And when me and Brian finally got out to the bar afterwards, I was just watching the Wisconsin on my phone. So for those that were watching this Tennessee Ole Miss game, I saw the highlights afterwards. I saw Lane Kiffin get, let's just be honest, it was a water bottle filled with dip inside getting thrown at him. He got thrown with golf balls. There was mustard bottles all over the turf. And somebody was talking about SEC officiating. I did see what was going on, but I'd like it more if somebody that actually did see it to touch up on a little bit more. Doug, I feel like you were watching this game, so how about you tell us?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I went to bed at like 8 p.m., so I literally missed the entire game.
Old man.
I am washed. I am very, very washed. I started watching Oklahoma TCU. I saw Caleb Williams do pretty well to start off, and then next thing I woke up, it was like 52-24, I think, and I was like, yeah, that's enough football for me tonight. So I failed the Hawaii test, people. I'm ashamed of myself.
It's just unfortunate. Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
No, if you go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just unfortunate when something like that happens because it kind of takes away from the situation and the moment of the grand scheme of things, which is Lane Kiffin coming back to Tennessee, and Rocky Top, and it sucks, man. It really does because I think that you kind of you kind of, it's like little kids, you can when you do something bad and you can't have nice things because every time you have something nice, you ruin it or you break it or you act up. And this is kind of those things. We can never have nice things because now they're gonna ban alcohol and they're gonna ban all these other stuff. That's gonna lead to that. And just because I mean, you don't really gotta do that, man. You don't have to throw anything on the like. You don't have to throw things on the field. And first of all, it's dangerous. I'm gonna sound like an old grump right now because I understand the atmosphere. It's a big game. It's a rivalry game. It's against your old coach who you despise. But you got to be better than that, man. There's no place for that anywhere. You could really hurt somebody. You can hit somebody that's an innocent person in the eye or something like that and really hurt them. And it sucks. It really sucks because it takes away from the moment. It takes away from the situation, from the storyline. And when a storyline it's kind of like when umpires or referees suck and they ruin and they at the end of the game, it's a great game and it comes down to a call late in the game and all they talk about is the referees and it takes away from the moment and from the game that we just watched. And that's what that situation did that to me. And it sucks. It really does because we should know better. We're all adults. I know some of them are college kids, but they should know better as well. They shouldn't be drinking anyway. I don't think you're old enough to drink in college anyway, but
They'll find a way.
Yeah, they do find a way. But I just think, come on, man. We're better than that. I mean, I guess, Tennessee isn't better than that, but those hillbillies over there don't know left or right. So maybe that's why they do something like that. But
somebody clip that.
It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, I think I agree with Brian. It's tough. I wasn't watching the game, but I did have the game on. And I remember when they turned the ball over on downs, they didn't get the fourth down or whatever. I was like, okay. And so I go away. I was hanging out with some friends. I turn and look back, and it was legit 30 minutes of no football. I thought the game was over. I thought I missed the end of the game. So I started flipping to something else, and I flipping back to see what else was on. And Tennessee has the ball again. What happened? So it's unfortunate. Just a bunch of just spoiled kids who didn't get their way. They weren't happy. Felt like I was watching the USA versus Mexico game. But I hope some of those kids. I want to see them punished. I don't want to see them, have a record or anything like that. I don't want them to ruin their future over one dumb decision. But that can't happen again. I don't think they should be allowed in the stadium for the rest of the year. And I think there's going to be a lot of restrictions on the student section, probably even a limit, and they probably won't be allowed in the lower bowl, I would guess.
So a couple things I did want to bring up. I mean, Tennessee just get the University of Tennessee, which honestly kind of feels unfair because let's be honest, if it was up to the university, they would tell these hicks to not throw anything onto the field, but they just got hit with that $250,000 fine. And I saw a lot of A&M students and grads get on Twitter when it happened. They said we got fined $100,000 for storming the field. They better get hit with something else. Well, they did. Okay, you got your wish granted. My question. So I've been to a couple of venues. All right, I've been to. I want to bring up three main venues that I've been to: Rice Stadium, Kyle Field, and Darrell K. Royal.
Yep.
Something that these three stadiums have in common is that whenever I went up to the stadiums, none of those three had metal detectors. None of them had a security guard outside to check your pocket or anything like that, or bag check. That none of these three stadiums did. So I asked a question on Twitter Sunday morning. I was like, okay, why is this? And, is this a Texas thing or what the hell is it? Because the reason why I asked it was because of how are you getting through security with golf balls and mustard bottles and batteries and all this stuff? Is this just a college football thing in general where it's normal to not check these things and only a select few do it? I know at TDECU Stadium in Houston, yeah, I got to go through a metal detector. I got to put my stuff in those baskets. And as annoying as it is, at least I can reassure with people that I don't have any weapons on me. When I went to Kyle Field, Daryl K. Royal, and Rice, I could have gone in with a weapon and nobody would have noticed and nobody would have saw anything. So does Neyland Stadium, does the SEC in general, do they not do this? Is this a college football thing where most stadiums don't? I mean, this is something that I really want to know because now it's really starting to understand of how the hell are we allowing these foreign objects getting into the stadiums? That's just what I want to know.
Well, yeah, as far as the golf balls thing goes, I don't like who brings golf balls to a game. That has to be something that they planned out. They planned on. I don't know what else would you do with the golf balls and then throw them at people.
It's like, so random.
Yeah, honestly they might have to launch an investigation about that because I feel like that has to be planned. They had to plan to throw those at somebody or something. I don't know.
I play golf. Golf balls are not cheap. Okay, I am not gonna throw a golf ball onto the field just because I can. Okay, that's not gonna happen. So let's see. What else was I gonna say here? What else do we have planned? Doug, I know you mentioned it a little bit. Iowa falls. Guess what, guys? With Iowa falling to Purdue, something great has just happened. An opportunity, a window of hope has just emerged. Wisconsin now controls their destiny in the Big Ten West. We're gonna beat up.
Not with that quarterback.
We're gonna beat Purdue this weekend. We're gonna beat Iowa the next weekend. Iowa's at home in Camp Randall, I'm believing. We're gonna beat Nebraska. We're gonna beat Minnesota in Minnesota. And then we're gonna get our ass kicked by Ohio State. I'm calling it now.
So lay off the crack pipe. You most likely will end up splitting most of those games. I don't even think that the Axe is a guarantee this year.
We're going to
Minnesota stinks. Minnesota stinks, but they've looked a lot more. Actually, I can't say.
Does Minnesota have a top 3 defense?
I know Wisconsin has a bottom 3 offense.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the offense. I'm talking about the defense.
I know, but
we've scored more points on defense than we've allowed.
Well, you saw what happened. You saw what happened with Iowa. It doesn't matter. Purdue, they had a one all-time great defense, and Purdue David Bell just ran a train all over them.
Okay, so what if Wisconsin all of a sudden has a great offense now?
You know damn well that's not going to happen.
Braylon Allen, freshman from my hometown of Wisconsin, he just broke out. 17 years old, had 108 yards and a touchdown. Ches Malusi had 130 yards and a touchdown against an Army defense that led the FBS and all of total defense last year. Our quarterback does not even have to be good. All right, we clearly got 2 running backs that can run the ball. If we can run the ball in these teams, guess what? And control the time possession, we'll beat these teams.
Brian, we've seen this story before. You know, it's not sustainable.
That's right. It's not.
Wisconsin's made sustainable over the last 10 years.
Yeah, but Mertz is probably your worst quarterback, and
he's not.
You're begging for Joel Stave. Like, come on now. Let's not lie here.
Okay, fine. All right. He may not be Joel Stave. Truthfully, though, he probably is not worse as a quarterback than Alex Hornibrook. Yeah, that's all I got.
He's worse.
He stinks.
All right. So any main topics that we forgot to bring up?
Coach O officially.
That's right. Forgot about that.
So Coach O is leaving at the end of the season.
Bringing girlfriends to practice.
Yeah. He was a wild person. Like that's. So I think the way the story framed it just made it seem like he was bringing them all willy-nilly and stuff. Like he probably was, but I'm trying to be nice guy and give him the benefit of doubt.
Or we could be brutally honest.
Okay, so you know how coaches will bring their kids to like camp or something, and sometimes they'll just have them like, what do you call it? End of the day, just like field punts or whatnot. Like that's what I feel that happened, but at least with the kid portion. Like bringing girlfriends all over the actual campus, like interfering with work operations. Yeah, he was. Like that's just that can't run. Like as multiple coaches have told us in the past, Bobby Petrino, Mike Price, Rick Pitino, keep your personal life and your work life separate. They do not need to mingle. If they do mingle, you will get fired, most likely for cause. I mean, Coach O didn't get fired for cause, but you'll get fired for that.
It was essentially resign or get fired. He was at a crossroad.
Exactly.
I seriously just want to know, like, what's that like? I mean, sure, okay, you got kids fielding punts, maybe catching a few passes, but what the hell are the girlfriends just doing there, man? Like, are they just on the sidelines just doing nothing? I mean, are they just eye candy for the players? That's kind of what I just want to know.
So I get it because it's like one hand, it's kind of weird leaving your kids with a football coach like without you like there, but at the same time, it's like it's fucking weird.
I mean, let's not act like he was an amazing coach. The only reason he won a national title is because he had Joe Brady and Joe Burrow. I mean, without them too, you don't win a national championship. You saw what he did before that, nothing much. You saw what he did after that, nothing much. So you're telling me you had one outlier season in his tenure at LSU, and then both those people leave, and then you go back to being mediocre. I mean, you kind of the writing's on the wall there. So yeah, I'm not really, it doesn't move the needle much. He's not that great of a coach, and you lucked into a championship. He's kind of like Larry Coker at Miami. Larry Coker came into Miami, had those immense, incredible talent, won a national championship, becomes a national championship winning head coach. And I mean, that's pretty much it. He rode the coattails of other people and won a title and got himself to a couple more years. And he's not a good coach. So, I mean.
UTSA legend Larry Coker.
Yeah, UTSA legend Larry Coker.
He was like their first coach, right?
Yeah.
He was the first coach, yep.
He still lives here too. I've seen him around. He was our first coach. He coached for like 5 years. The first 5 years, and then he kind of, I don't know if he got fired or retired. I forgot, one of the two.
Well, he hasn't coached since.
They probably forced him to retire, which is what should happen to Mac Brown and a few other coaches out there. So, I'm sorry, North Carolina's just terrible, but Miami just sucks the worst.
I mean, the thing that I see with like Edo, like I'll be honest with you, I was high on Edo when he did win the national title, and then obviously last year. Let's be honest, it was not just the fact that it was a pandemic for LSU. They clearly had very bad issues last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then I think that's kind of when the questions really started to be like, all right, were you just a product of an assistant coach and a Heisman winning quarterback? I mean,
yes,
kind of is obvious at this point that it was. So now kind of just ask the question of like, okay, because if you guys remember, I think it was 2013 it was when he took the intern job, when he was the defensive line coach at USC, took an intern job, goes like 5-0, 5-1, something like that. And people are begging for him to be the full-time head coach for USC. That's when Sark, who obviously his name comes up a few times now, he gets the head coaching gig. So, hold up. Was that
Sark?
It was Sark. Okay.
It was Sark, and then he got fired, and then it was Helton. That's a Grover.
So all right. So that's what I was going to say. So, now it kind of just makes like wonder like, okay, you know what? Maybe Coach O is a good interim coach. Maybe he's a good rah-rah coach. But unfortunately,
that's literally his. Yeah, he's a rah-rah CEO type of guy. But if you need him to make any sort of decisions, then that's not his forte. I'll give Coach O this. To his credit, he has chopped and changed, which worked. They dumped Matt Canada, kept Singer, and then got Joe Brady. Like he was able to make those small adjustments, combine that with the talent that was already on the roster / transfers that led to that national title. Same time, however, you've hit wrong. Like they replaced Aranda with Bo Pelini. That didn't work. The new hires haven't worked out. The talent's on the roster is there. Like You saw that Ty Davis Price damn near ran over 500 yards against Florida. By the way, Todd Grantham sucks, but please keep him hired until after we beat them this year. Actually, keep him hired at Florida every time. But that's aside my point. Sorry about going on the full Bulldogs little rant there. But yeah, Coach O hasn't made the right assistant decisions. And on top of that, so last year I'll give him a pass because one, COVID, and two, pretty much the whole entire team left. And then the ones that were still there checked out, whether it was Jamar Chase, who decided to opt out smartly, or it was Stingley, who pretty much I do think that he checked out. Like, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's still going to be like a top 5 overall pick. But like, it's clear, like, you're on top of the world as a freshman. There's not really much else to play for, really. You know the team is going to be worse than it was last year. So, yeah, check out. Like, I don't really play for him. But, like, I'll give him a pass for last year. Like, they still had that fight, though. And then this year, it's just like, no. Crap their bed on the road against UCLA. Got spanked by Kentucky, which is practically unacceptable for a level of LSU, no matter how good Kentucky is. So, Coach O is a good rah-rah, but, like, if you need him to be there for 3-5 years, then he's not your guy.
Something I just want to add real quick
Sure.
on LSU is now you kind of got to wonder, okay, we're going to go ahead and just assume that he's going to take a position coach, probably a DL coach position somewhere, and that's okay. And also another thing with Coach O is that he probably, if he chose to coach high school, he could probably be the best high school coach in his state, to be honest with you. Because his culture fits perfectly for high school. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And I just think right now with LSU, it's like, I just don't know what we're supposed to believe right now because it feels like everybody was banking on them to beat UCLA, which did not happen. I feel like whenever they played Mississippi State and Starkville, a lot of people were anticipating for them to lose because at that point, Mississippi State was really riding high. Then they lose to Auburn, they lose to Kentucky, which I feel like we kind of expected. And then they pull out this win against Florida, which a lot of people were expecting Florida to beat them. So now I'm really starting to wonder, like, okay, so what is LSU? Where does LSU go from here? Who's going to be the coach? How are they going to approach recruiting? I just think there's so many questions that you have to ask in regards to LSU's program in general where you just do not know what to believe.
Well, with everything that's looking is everything that I'm looking at, I'm hearing, at least from the internet rumors, Mel Tucker is going to be that guy. It's going to be Tucker, Miranda. Those two guys are probably going to be the top of the list. I can't see anybody else really. I mean, because they both have Southern ties. Well, Tucker obviously being with Kirby at Georgia, and then Miranda obviously being at LSU. Both have done great jobs with their respective programs in Baylor and Michigan State. Same time, however, like I do still think that both should stay for Tucker's sake. I think John Michigan State isn't finished yet. Like they have a non-zero chance of winning the conference this year. I don't think that they will beat Ohio State, but I do think Ohio State is not good enough to where they can lose again, and then Michigan State can sneak into the Big Ten title game. But and Miranda Baylor, honestly, there's a lot of at-large slots in the New Year's Six Open. I don't think that Baylor will beat Oklahoma, but I do think that if Baylor does well enough, they can finish season 10-2, and they can backdoor into a New Year's Six. So neither coach should leave, but they probably will because LSU's a probably top 10 job in the country. You're thinking?
I was a top 5. Doing their good.
Yeah, but I'm also trying to like booster because like I don't want like for me like a top job is I want booster support, but not having to deal with like booster like demands, like heavy demands. Like for me, Texas would never be a top 5 job.
Yeah, you would hate the Texas job, man.
Yeah, no, Texas would not be a top job. I mean, you can have the resources, you can have the talent pool, you have location. It's just the resources are like it's just a pain. Like honestly, probably the best job for me out there, like total, like gun to my head right now would be UCLA. You're not expected to win the conference. You don't even expect to win the division warriors or not. They beat USC once in a while, go 9-3. You're in California. Pretty much all your stuff's paid for. Like, and the recruits are right there. And if you're going 9-3, they're going to come to you. Like, not the top ones, but you'll get a decent enough recruiting base. So that's the job.
All right, cool. So we just got done talking on girlfriends. We got done talking on great things. We talk about how Wisconsin's going to win the rest of the season and then make it to the Big Ten title game. At least I spoke on that. Anything that I feel like we've covered everything at this point, have we not? And by the way, if you're listening to this, guess what? Brian just decided to quit on us on the spot. Great work, Brian. You've given up on the team. Just kidding. His laptop just died, so that's great. Guys, I think we're officially done here. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you made it this far out, give us, don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast from. And we'll see you guys on Thursday morning.